Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Sunday. Now, hopefully, everybody's having a great early weekend. So, I've been thinking, man, ever since I made that review video for the new Hasbro figures I got in from Robert Jackson, I've been thinking about wanting to make a new Hasbro tournament. And there was a long period of time, a large gap where I didn't have any tournament videos going. And I I honestly can't remember a time where I wasn't making tournament videos where it wasn't like an ongoing process of the channel. Yeah, I mean just like nowadays, I still got other videos being incorporated in between those videos, but like to have that extensive amount of time pass without any tournaments, it was weird. I want to do like a little Hasbro right now where like the LJN tournament and the Hasbro tournament are like ongoing, but man, that would be an undertaking now. Could you imagine at 325 or so figures of LJN? I mean, I'm already spent, and we're not even done with the series or with the first round yet. And Hasbro with all of the customs, I don't think I have as many Hasbro customs plus originals plus as much as I do LJN. So, but I'd have to say still north of 200 figures at least. So no, I couldn't fathom doing both tournaments simultaneously. That would be crazy. That would absolutely destroy wreck me. But yeah, I am really looking forward to doing another Hasbro tournament. I haven't heard back from anybody yet, so I don't know if that's something that really interests anybody. And I'm sure it's probably something that, a handful of people would love to see again. But I think the next tournament, next tournament I want to make is the Galoob tournament. And I haven't made a Galoob tournament yet, so that would be fresh. It'll be unique. Kind of stay away from something I've already done, right? So, not a whole lot to talk about in this particular video. So, luckily, with this particular video, we will be able to dive right back into the My Favorite LJN tournament and won't have 10 minutes wiped off the board right off the beginning of the video. So, that is a good thing. I believe we are on episode 35, if I am not mistaken. Yes. Round 1, episode 35. Round 1, part 35, however you want to look at it. But at the conclusion of this video, I estimate about 5 more videos to complete round 1. Man, last video, Big John Stud. Excited to finally get that figure. There are certain figures that you really look forward to seeing in the tournament, so it was so awesome to be able to be able to see that figure finally. It's a shame it took 34 videos though to get that one in. Anyways, let's dive into today's matchup, which is going to feature Ken Patera as he does battle against Jesse Ventura, and in parentheses I wrote body, so I think that's like the Hogan looking figure or something. Not a Hogan pose, but I think I know which one that is. American Warrior. Which one is American Warrior? Okay, I'm picturing it as I'm reading off the names, trying to think whether it comes up. Ooh, that is bad news. For bad news, Bad News Brown versus American Warrior. Next matchup is gonna feature Big Boss Man. Well, that's a little bit of a rub. Big Boss Man versus Paul Orndorff. That is Paul Orndorff original. Last matchup is going to feature Pink Warrior. There we go again. I said it. I said in the last video, I'm not surprised anymore, so why am I acting surprised? Pink Warrior. Every freaking video I make, I have at least 2 of the same characters versus custom acts, and this one's confusing because which one is considered my custom acts? You know what? The one custom axe with gray face, I keep with the random treasures. So I think I would have called that one Random Treasures axe. So this must be the other gray faced axe figure. At least I'm hoping that's what that is. But four matchups, and you know what? This was a pretty good haul overall in this video, so it should be fun. Let's get them pulled, and I will be back shortly. Alright, so the 8 names, or the 8 figures have been pulled, and we are ready to begin. So, we said Ken Patera versus Jesse Ventura. And this is our first matchup. We will start with Ken Patera. So earlier in this tournament, we did see much younger Ken Patera, blonde Ken Patera, Olympic Ken Patera. That was a custom by Wrestling Writer. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that figure did make it in round 2. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Oddly enough, Ken Patera, when you actually look at this figure, this is actually a pretty fantastic figure. So when you look at figures like Ken Patera, like One Man Gang, I think they're both absolutely splendid figures. Okay. Grip, I mentioned, fantastic. Big husky figures, good build, great grip to the figures. The only thing that ever got me about these figures is play pose. Now, once upon a time, when I first started this channel, the first thing I ever did on this channel was create my favorite LJN tournament. And it was the first time I ever made YouTube videos. So the very early going of my channel, it was kind of getting comfortable and familiar with making videos and kind of getting an idea of how I wanted to present my videos and what I wanted to say and talk about. So after that, I did some Hasbro videos, some glue videos, and I came back and I made like a top 10 list of my least favorite Hasbro, or my top 10 least favorite LJNs, and then top 10 most favorite LJN figures. And LJN has incredible figures, okay? 72, I always say 72, I don't know if it's 72, but again, with a lot of variants, it really makes it hard to give it an exact number. But because there's so many fantastic figures, it was really hard to pick out a list of top 10 worst. Now, there are certain figures you look at, you're like, absolutely, this belongs on the list. This does, that does, right? Someone like Ricky Steamboat, I thought could have been at number 10, but I eventually decided to put him off the list at number 10, and I ended up putting Ken Patera on that list at number 10. There is nothing wrong with the figure. Like, I think this is a spectacular figure, like I said. The only thing that eventually that affected my decision was that even with the bad claw pose of Ricky Steamboat, I still felt like it was a better fighting pose than Ken Patera, and that's basically it. Color-wise, I like better than Ricky Steamboat, which is just a plain black outfit, right? Big, bulkier figure, better. It's just that it's relatively an unplayable figure. So when you look at Macho Man and One Man Gang and Ken Patera, all these figures with hands up, Galoob, Sting, etc., right? It makes it hard. I keep hearing a story from different people that talk about LJNs. 80s Rev is one of those guys, obviously. In fact, I think he just did a video recently talking about Ken Patera, and I've heard the story on his channel before, and he brought up that Ken Patera was arrested while throwing a rock or something through a window at McDonald's. I thought, like, and I've heard the story through him and through other channels as well, so I always got a kick out of that story. got arrested at McDonald's while beating up police officers. I'm like, stupid. You're a professional freaking athlete, dude. You are a freaking celebrity, okay? Act like a freaking adult. He spent a few years in jail, came back, and was roided up. Now I have seen Ken Patera in like really early, let's say 85 ish or whatever, and yeah, he was Olympic. He was Olympian, so yeah, he was in great shape, physicality wise. But I mean, he wasn't this. Like what the heck? Not even close. This looks like this was made after Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. But he must have really hit the juice while in prison. I don't remember if I ever saw him afterwards. Like I said, I only remember watching a couple of videos where he wrestled as a much smaller, leaner guy. It is a fantastic figure. I just don't like the pose. That's about it. If I were to do a top 10 least favorite, this figure would be nowhere near the top 10. Top 20, potentially. Top 15, I don't think so. It's good. It's just not the pose. That gets me. Now this is what makes this matchup difficult, though. I really do like the Ken Patera figure more than this iteration of Jesse Ventura. I do. But it's not as simple as I like this figure better, bam, he's going to automatically move on. There are things about this figure that give me pause. There are things about this figure that I look at it, I'm like, you know what? This is not just a figure good enough to win this matchup. This is a figure that can legitimately make it 3-4 rounds. So, for starters, when I look at the face, that to me, that's not Jesse Ventura. To me, that's freaking Hulk Hogan. Okay, so I understand why a lot of people take the Jesse Ventura pose, right, and why they turn him into Hulk Hogan so many times. They're basically copies of each other. In all honesty, when you look at the different head sculpts of the figures, it's not Jesse Ventura. That to me, 100% Hogan. But okay, well let's bypass that. If this was the original, like if this pose was Jesse Ventura, and you did away with that crap right there, this could potentially have been one of the best LJN figures. Just going off of the original figure with this arm positioning, incredible. That's two very playable and enjoyable poses, situated fantastically. Color scheme on this is incredible. They gave him nice cargo pants, and yes, even with the cargo pockets, just like the Bushwhackers, the cargo pockets do pop out, so they're not situated flat on the pants. So that is fantastic. Overall design looks incredible. I mean, throughout this figure, insanely good. Now, let me look around the arms here, because as I look around the arms, like, I don't see cuts where someone may have, chopped off the arms, obviously. And if they have, maybe it's like right up here where the sleeve is, but now the sleeve is obviously, this is painted over the chest, but like, I don't see any breakage, I don't see any holes. So whoever did this did a freaking incredible job. I've been waiting for this figure to pop up too. This is one of those figures that I'm like, I want to see who this one goes up against, because I'm curious how well he's going to do. A lot of these figures, when I get them in, I look at them, I'm like, okay, nice. Put them on the shelf. Generally, that's about all I do. I get a figure from Ram Treasures. Okay. Shelf. Get a figure in from Wrestling Rider. Same thing. Any of these customizers. The most time I ever spend actually diving in and looking at every single aspect of the figure, detail by detail, inch by inch, is when I make these review type videos. And yeah, when we do these tournaments, they are kind of reviewing the figure all in all, because you have to. It's going to give you your best option of selecting the best figure for you. It may not be the figure that fits everybody, but this tournament is about your favorite figure, right? This really is a much tougher decision than I give it credit for. I just don't want to simply say Ken Patera just because he's original. But this is so freaking good. Oh my god, this is I say round 3, but looking at it, this is a potential round 4. This is I've looked at the new Robert Jackson Macho Man, and very close with the arm positioning, right? If I say that could be a potential round 5, why can't this be a round 5? I don't know. This is a hard decision. At least I could say I remember Jesse Ventura, at least with playbacks and Coliseum videos and stuff like that. Obviously, when he was doing commentary, I don't really remember it as a kid because I either wasn't born yet, or if I was way too freaking young to remember. So my memory growing up, I always remember Jerry Lawler and Vince McMahon. That was like the big one. Jim Ross, Vince McMahon, what have you. Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, um, Gorilla Monsoon, and Vince or something. But it's always like the Coliseum videos you go back and you watch, or these home videos. You watch WrestleMania, on Coliseum video and stuff. I always think Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon had the best back and forth. But Gorilla and Bob and Jess Ventura, yeah, they work well in tandem. I am going to go with Ken Patera on this one. It really is a difficult choice, and I think that legitimately maybe the Jesse Ventura figure could potentially go further in this tournament, but I just like the Ken Patera figure a lot. And go figure that a figure that I put on my list of top 10 worst is one that I want to see go further in this tournament. Odd. Next matchup is going to feature Bad News Brown as he does battle against American Warrior. It's funny how freaking close these figures are. And you know what? If I didn't choose them together and put them side by side like so, I would not have even noticed that. I mean, yeah, I know all about the Warrior pose, right? But and I know all about the Bad News Brown pose, but I didn't realize just simply how close their pose was resembling one another. I've always said the Ultimate Warrior had, in my opinion, was the number 7 greatest LJN figure, and had one of the single greatest fighting poses of the LJN line. Now, I don't want to say I criticize, but one of my biggest complaints about Random Treasure's Bad News Brown figure was that bad pose, arm is way up there. And I despise figures with the arm straight up like Bad News Brown, or like the tag team of British Bulldogs, for example. But this is a lot closer than I give it credit. I mean, look at it. It's not like it's super high up as much as Bad News Brown, but it's still relatively close. When you kind of look at Galoob Series 2 UK exclusive, I kind of compare this figure with the robed Lex Luger. I think those are very similar in comparison. So, Ultimate Warrior, the US flag color scheme, right? And purple belt to boot. This was the 1990 Royal Rumble. So I gotta make sure I got the years right. So 96, or is it 91? So 1990 was WrestleMania 6. No, WrestleMania 6 was 1990. So that would have been Hogan Warrior. And then Sergeant Slaughter and Hogan was 7. And then Justice and Hogan was 8. So 91. Royal Rumble 91. you would have featured this variant of the Ultimate Warrior as he did battle against Sergeant Slaughter. And of course we all know the match. Freaking Macho Man crushes his scepter over the Ultimate Warrior's head. Ultimate Warrior's passed out. Sergeant Slaughter pins him. 1, 2, 3, game over. Sergeant Slaughter is your new heavyweight champion. Sergeant Slaughter goes on to WrestleMania 7, where he loses the belt to Hulk Hogan. I mean, it's one of those BS freaking moments, man. Like, I hate that. I hate that it seems like certain wrestlers, which you now classify as heels, cannot freaking win a match or win championships the right way. They've always got to cheat. And just make it an even keel match. Okay? Don't have cameramen blowing fire into people's faces, blinding them. Okay? Don't do that. Don't have people bashing crowns or scepters over people's head. Breaking ladders and chairs over. Nah. Just do a fun one-on-one match. Make it a nice surprise if someone wins the match. Because then you're just going to be pissing off a lot of people and you're going to turn away a lot of fans, especially if they're young fans. Imagine being 6 years old and being an Ultimate Warrior fan and then seeing some crap like that. It's like, you know what? You may not even be a fan of wrestling anymore at that point. And you think, is that enough to turn away a 6-year-old from wrestling? Absolutely. So, Ultimate Warrior. Is this my favorite iteration of all the different figures I have? Among the Series 6 figures, it's possible. I still like the original a lot, but it's hard. Oddly enough, I remember when I got my Sid Vicious Galoob 2-Up in from Round Treasures, and a lot of the time, you get new figures in, and you sit there, you kind of goof off for like a minute, and you just do something like this. Nothing major, right? But I kind of got Sid Vicious, and I just picked around, figured I chose Bad News Brown, and for whatever reason, Bad News Brown and Sid Vicious work so nice together. I think because of the height difference and because of the arm kind of gives them that extra height. I think they made a really fun comparison to have a little matches with. But yeah, if this arm was like this is a near perfect figure. Just and all you're doing is dropping the arm. Trash. Perfect. Great thing about rubber is that it allows you to at least show you that differentiation. Where if this was a resin figure, it's a statue, you're not being able to make those changes, right? So I think Bad News Brown legitimately could have made it further into this tournament. I mean, he wouldn't have gone into no round 4, that's for sure. He probably wouldn't have made it into round 3, but I think he could have legitimately been a round 2 figure, and I could have had the opportunity to talk about him a little bit more, but he's not going to beat no Ultimate Warrior. I don't care what Ultimate Warrior figure we're talking about. If we're talking about original LJN Series 6, if we're talking about any of the Series 6 LJN customs, or Series 6 iteration customs, if we're talking about Ram Treasure's Ultimate Warrior, if we're talking about the Hogan Warrior, if we're talking about any other type of variant of Ultimate Warrior, none of those figures would ever lose to Bad News Brown. Recently, Bad News Brown did get his own release from Zombie Sailors Heels and Faces, and actually it's it's probably going to be the most coveted piece from that entire collection. Abdullah the Butcher looks fantastic. Bloody Ric Flair looks incredible, but I think Bad News Allen, Bad News Brown, I think he's going to be one that people are really going to gravitate towards. I actually got a custom Hasbro of his several months ago, and it's one of my favorite pieces. And to get one of those on Hasbro was incredible. Keep getting these spam calls. Got to delete all of that. And what else of his? His shoot interviews. I don't listen to a lot of shoot interviews. When you get on YouTube, there's certain people that you gravitate to, and you see these little 2-minute clips, 3-minute clips, 6-minute clips. You try to find longer clips based on who's talking. Like Marty Jannetty has a couple of fun ones, but I always gravitate towards either Greg Valentine or Bad News Brown. I think they're probably the more honest and realistic. Honky Tonk Man gives a pretty fun one, but again, there's certain people you kind of gravitate towards. Hulk Hogan. I don't know. A lot of people talk about Hogan and how a lot of his stories aren't based on reality. Like how he's making stories up or something, or fabricating stories or exaggerating. I don't know what to believe. So when I hear other people saying that about Hogan, and I hear him doing his interviews and talking about events that happen, it's like, can I believe this? It's like I want to as a fan, as someone who this is my favorite wrestler, but no, like guys like Greg Valentine and Bad News Brown, I think they're the most genuine guys. So I enjoy their interviews the most. Next matchup is going to feature... Now this one, you guys, we already know it's got to be pretty much a wash. Original Big Boss Man takes on original Paul Orndorff. So this is actually the third straight video in which we've seen a Paul Orndorff figure. Now we've seen a couple of Mark Hackenberg customs, and this is the first time we get to see the original figure. It's a fine figure. I don't remember if Paul Orndorff was on my list of top 10 least favorite pieces. I am assuming he was, because as I look over on my shelf and I'm like, there are probably 5 or 6 pieces I could look at right off the bat and be like, yeah, that's definitely on that list. But is it horrific? Is it like one of the worst figures ever? No, it's an okay figure. Is it playable? I mean, if you had a handful of figures and this was one of them, you could definitely make use out of it. So you can do some things with it, right? Basically kind of a mixture of like Macho Man, One Man Gang, Ken Patera type of deal. Only his arms are spread out a little bit further, so that helps out a little bit. So, but I don't know if it was last video before, I don't remember, but I've said that the freaking Big Boss Man figure, it had to be last video because I was talking about Big John Studd in last video, and I said that to this day I still classify Big John Studd as my #1 favorite LJN figure, and I still do that based on the fact that Sid Vicious Galoob is probably still my #1 all-time favorite figure. Is my George Washington of wrestling action figures, based on how I used that figure as a kid and how it was the most enjoyable figure for me, and how Big John Studd is very similar to the pose of that Sid Vicious figure. Way back when I did my top 10 favorite figures, top 10 least favorite, and followed by another video of top 10 most favorite LJNs, Big Boss Man was number 6. He was behind number 5, Greg Valentine. Is Big Boss Man worse than Greg Valentine? Because I never changed the list, I still classify Greg Valentine in the top 5. And that's fine. You know, Greg Valentine, when I was doing my videos, when I first started, because I wanted to get a feel for the figures, he was my most used figure. I enjoyed using that figure like crazy. So I had no problems. I still have no qualms about having him in the top 5. But everything that I look for in an action figure, things that I talk about, why Bruiser Brody has won both of my first 2 tournaments, why that figure keeps winning is because he's got name recognition. Sure. But it's not somebody I grew up watching, though. He's famous. But you know what? Chris Jericho. I know the name Chris Jericho. He's a famous celebrity, famous wrestler. I never watched Chris Jericho wrestle. I couldn't tell you. I could walk past Chris Jericho on the road, have no idea who he is. I wouldn't know what he looks like. I don't know what his wrestling matches are, who his feuds are with, how many championships, nothing like that. But I know the name. Until I started collecting, I mean, Bruiser Brody, I was never familiar with that. I mean, I've become more and more familiar with him and become more of a fan because of my collecting and learning about him and his character and his history, whatnot. So, but Big Boss Man, I grew up with Big Boss Man. I freaking love Big Boss Man. One of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Okay, my Bruiser Brody had a accessory. Big Boss Man has one of the best accessories. Got it. He's got colors that pop. Design. He's got bulk. He's got thickness. Got good weight to it. Fantastic fighting pose. Everything I've talked about with that Bruiser Brody being a perfect figure, there is no reason why, in all honesty, why Big Boss Man should not have won either of my first 2 tournaments. And in all honesty, there's no reason why I should not list this figure as my number 1 favorite LJN figure. It is beyond perfection. I have a mint on card AFA graded Big Boss Man. To me, that is still probably the number 1 most important piece of my entire collection. And I always said it was very important for me to have a black card LJN. And if I was going to have one black card, Big Boss Man had to be that figure. Because, I mean, look at it. It's just a perfect figure. Now, with all this being said, does that mean Big Boss Man wins this tournament? I mean, heck, in the first tournament, I think Big Boss Man, because I had them square off based on how they were displayed on the shelf, I think Big Boss Man defeated Blackstrap Andre in the first round. But then again, I had my Warriors that I had square up against each other, and I think my Hogan Warrior custom, which moved on to round 2, defeated Big Boss Man in the second round. So second round, he wasn't even around long enough to make much of an impact in that first tournament. Now third or second tournament, I think, what was he? He was either a semifinalist or a finalist. I don't remember. But I'm like, you know what? This is the run he should have had the first time around. He could win this tournament, absolutely. He could have been a legitimate winner either of the first 2 times. He could win this one. He could be eliminated next round. He's not going to be eliminated this round because he is not losing to Paul Orndorff. I am just going to make that abundantly clear. But when I talk about heavy hitters in this tournament, and I talk about 10 figures that I look at, customs or original, that legitimately could win this tournament, and I'm not saying going far, I mean legitimately win, based on different attributes that they possess. Among original figures, Big John Studd is a heavy hitter. Kamala is a heavy hitter. Big Boss Man, heavy hitter. Does that mean any of those 3 win this tournament? Absolutely not. Bruiser Brody is a 2-time champion. Does that guarantee that he wins this tournament? Absolutely not. Things change. There are multiple other customs I've acquired that I feel like could be better than Bruiser Brody right now. So that's why I was so interested in making this tournament, because I feel like it's going to give you, I think there's more than enough shockers in this tournament that might surprise a few people. So, I don't know if we're going to have another 3-man finals or if it's going to break down to 2-man. I think it's going to be 3-man. I think Big Boss Man could be in the final 3, but if he's one of the last 5 standing in the semifinals, I'm okay with that too. It would be a nice run. Big Boss Man defeats Paul Orndorff. So, last video was at least I think it was last video. Let's see, episode 34. So, not last video. Round 1, part 33 was very Ultimate Warrior heavy. With the Ultimate Warrior with the Hogan body and Round Treasures Volume 2 Warrior. And now here in episode 35, we've got 2 more Ultimate Warriors to look at, both with the Series 6 color scheme as Pink Ultimate Warrior. And I just put on here Custom Axe. And we'll start with the Custom Axe. So, there is one Axe figure that I got from Buddy Daly, Stinger GQ on eBay, and it was an original Axe figure. They repainted his face gray, and because it was the exact same paint scheme that Ram Treasures uses, I basically put that figure with the Ram Treasures figure. It's fine. I don't have to buy a new figure just because it's Ram Treasures. I mean, it's the exact paint scheme, so. This one, I think this particular custom, they tried doing the same thing. They just did not do as nice of a job as the other one. But at the end of the day, it is a Axe figure, and Axe in general from LJN is a very pricey figure. If this was red face, with this condition, you're probably looking at a $75, $90 figure. Maybe $45 to $60 on the low end, but you would think customized it should be worth more, but that's not always the case. And that's funny because you think if somebody takes the time to paint something and customize it, it should make it more valuable. But customization sometimes actually hurts the value. But it depends on what you're customizing and for what reason. So, like, if you take a Hasbro Series 11 123 kid, an original Series 123 kid, and you customize it with a black singlet and put all the graphics 123 kid on it and whatnot, and you try to sell that for $1,200, $1,500, you're not going to get your money's worth on that. You'd be lucky to get a couple $100. Why? Yeah, it's an original Series 11 Hasbro 123 kid, but it's not the original blue singlet, so that destroys the value. Whereas, if you take, I don't know, something like Jake Roberts, that's like a $3 Hasbro figure. You customize it, give him black pants and the fire and everything, maybe you get $15, $20 out of that. So, it all depends on what you're customizing and for what purpose. I think Axe is one of those figures that, even with a lot of face paint loss, he's still going to be more valuable as a regular figure than a customized figure. This Ultimate Warrior is not done to the best work when you compare it to others, but there was something about this one that I really enjoyed. And when you kind of look at the designs on the figure, right? So when I look at this and I say, no, it is not done as well as some of the others, but I also kind of like it that way to an extreme. It kind of reminds me of South Park. South Park does not give you the best animation in the world, but it's its own unique take, right? So when I look at these, no, they're not like legitimate faces that somebody had drawn from like an actual artist. They look like kind of like cartoon type characters. They kind of look like Funko characters, like little Funko Pops, little couple inch figures, right? That's what they kind of look like to me. So I think in that respect, when you kind of look at them from a fun, zany standpoint, it's a fun and unique standpoint. Now, if you're thinking of some amazing artwork, top of the line artist, and if you're expecting that, you're not going to get the greatest artwork ever. But I, I think I still paid up for this one. Irrelevant. I think I still paid like $125 on this figure, and this is rubber, so it's not a resin figure. It was just crazy enough to the point where I felt like it was worth it, and I don't think it was an original. That's the thing though. If it was an original figure and somebody repainted it to look like this, even if it was pre-made up, I still would have kept the black boots on the bottom with the stencil, because that still would have gave it more value just by having that stencil. But I don't know. This isn't the same rubber that like Ram Treasures gives you. I don't think, because I bought this Ultimate Warrior type from Ram Treasures and their rubber is completely different. So I don't know. I don't know where they got this rubber from. Like I said, it moves throughout, so the entire figure is rubber. Maybe it was original. Maybe that's why I paid up for it, because maybe they put the notes that it was original repainted. But you get like that orange glossy look from the original figure, right? And here they even repainted the skin. This is actually a really good matchup. I mean, this is a fantastic matchup, to be honest, because you got two really fun figures. I mean, this one isn't done the best, but it's an axe figure, and Demolition will always have one of the best get-ups. And I've always said Demolition to me was always one of the more fun copycat groups. So I think I've told a story. I have told a story. Vince McMahon always wanted the Road Warriors, could never get Road Warriors in WWF. So he created his own painted face, leather wearing clad tag team, Brute Force, Demolition. And then in the 90s, when Legion of Doom finally joined up with WWF, even though Legion of Doom was already an established tag team, one of the greatest tag teams on the planet, I guess fans of WWF didn't really take too kindly to them, or didn't stick too well to them, because they just interpreted Legion of Doom as a copycat of Demolition. Leather wearing, painted face wearing guys copying Demolition, when technically Demolition was already a copycat of Legion of Doom. And I just love that story. But come on, man. Legion of Doom, Japan, AWA, these different smaller territories, NWA / WCW. WCW is a freaking huge market, okay? And then going back and forth between WWF and WCW. Yeah, they were mega freaking superstars. And to me, I don't ever remember like watching Raw or like pay-per-views and watching Legion of Doom and having like fans boo them or anything like that. So kind of hearing that chat about how fans didn't take to Legion of Doom, I don't buy it. I think Legion of Doom was always a beloved tag team in WWF, but that's just my interpretation. Fun matchup, but we're going to end it with the winner, who is the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior is going to move on to round 2. Well, that does it for episode 35. I'm estimating about 5 more episodes to go to close out this round, and we will move on to round 2. Now, do I continue round 2 straight away, or do I take like maybe a week off or so, because I kind of feel like I need a break at this point. This is kind of draining, but It all depends on whether or not I have any other videos I want to put out at that time. If not, I'll keep making the tournament videos. But if I have other ideas, other things I want to put out, then I'll probably take 3 days, 5 days, a week. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, goodbye, everybody.